So I got in, and that's how I got full scholarship. So I didn't have to pay a penny to the university, which was the reason behind why I've been interested so much in AI is because there's so many ways that we can leverage AI to make our lives easier. But it is a topic that is very close to home, and it is about online education. And when COVID hit, even I was forced into attending online school for 2 years. And I have seen.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Hi, Ritika. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Awesome. It's lovely to catch up like this on a podcast.
Yeah, it's been long.
It's been a while. It's been
Yeah,
almost 2 years, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
two
We
years just
met
before
just
I
just
left.
before you left. Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Ritika, for our audience, please introduce yourself. Let give us your background. Where do you come from? Where have you studied your high schools, your undergrad, and what are you up to? What did you study in US?
Okay, so hi, I'm Rutika and I'm from Pune, Maharashtra, and I've done my school all of my life actually in Pune. I've pursued my undergrad in communication design, specializing in graphic design from Symbiosis Institute of Design, and post which I worked for a little while in Bangalore for about a year as a UX designer. And that's when I realized that I want to get deeper into this field and I need to learn more before I pursue like a professional career in this. So that's when I decided to pursue a master's degree. So at that time, which is not long ago, but still 2 years ago, there weren't a lot of universities providing this specific course in a much wider scope, which is why US and UK, all of these places were my obvious choices. From which I got into one of the universities in the US, Thomas Jefferson University, and I just recently graduated from um, TJU, having pursued my Masters of Science in User Experience and Interaction Design, and now I'm currently on my job hunt for pursuing a career in the same. So, yeah, that has been quite a roller coaster of a journey, but a good one.
Awesome. First of all, congratulations on your graduation.
Thank you.
Great. And for obvious reasons, our wishes and our wishes are with you with respect to your entire job. You've been a fabulous designer, and we have personally experienced that
Yeah,
at
I've
Anand, and for obvious
had
reasons.
the opportunity. I missed out on telling that, but I throughout my undergrad, I've had the opportunity of working with you as a graphic designer, which gave me like a parallel experience of professionalism and a student. So that is something that I have you to
We
thank for.
enjoyed that. We enjoyed that thoroughly. Awesome. Ritika, can you please tell our audience how exactly you evolved into this process of studying abroad? Primarily, how did you figure out these universities? How did you build up your profile? Because if you remember, we ended up having an extensive discussion about your portfolio, right? So, how exactly you worked on your portfolio to prove your case? And please tell us about your scholarship.
Yeah. Um, so initially, my plan was to work for a while and see if I really want to do a master's. Doing a master's was always up on my list, but I wanted to gain some amount of work experience to really know if I really to decide which area I want to pursue a master's in. So after working in Bangalore and while working in Bangalore is when I was going through all of this process of applications, finding universities, finding opportunities. So like a complete newbie to all of this, I googled top 20 universities in UK, top 20 universities in the US, and I just looked at all of those courses. And for me personally, I went through each and every university that I wanted to shortlist, the curriculum that they had, because came from a graphic design background, and user experience is a mix of tech and design. So most of the universities need like an IT background where they need coding as a prerequisite, but I don't have it. So that sort of narrowed down my list of universities. And post which I was looking at career opportunities also, where in which country will I have more scope to get a job and where I will get more experience. So UK and US were the obvious choices, but out of which again I focused my preferences based on the class quantity because I felt that I would be more focused upon when there's a class of 20 versus when there's a class of 120 people. So that's how I narrowed down my list of universities. And beyond that, I wanted to know if there are any scholarships available. And that's when you also mentioned that there are a lot of graduate assistantships, research assistantships, teaching assistantships. So I researched a little bit more about what their requirement criteria is. And to my advantage, my brother, my elder brother, he was already working in the US at that time. So he had first hand experience with all of these things as well. So both of these things sort of helped me take a stronger decision for myself. And he had experience of knowing how to apply for graduate assistantships. You were suggesting constantly about all of these. And I just took my shot and I applied for universities which provided graduate assistantships to freshers, and Thomas Jefferson University was one of them. Um, I think they I mean TJU was the only university that provided a graduate assistantship to freshers, and I was fortunate enough to have attended their open house, which is normally held for all the universities. There are open houses that are held around November or December for fall intake. And I was fortunate enough to attend that and then get to know about all of these things. And I applied well in advance before I even decided I want to go to TJU. So I applied for it. I had an extensive round of interview with a professor who was offering that graduate assistantship, and it mainly focused on how well built out my portfolio is, how much I align with their scope of work, and what experience I already hold. So it again, call it destiny, but it was aligned perfectly. So I got in, and that's how I got full scholarship. So I didn't have to pay a penny to the university, which was a bonus point for me. But I got immense amount of professional experience throughout the 2 years while pursuing a master's degree, and that's an experience I'm extremely thankful for because I closely worked with a professor who has mentored 10 PhD candidates, and he's an established designer. So working under him was like an honor for me because I got to learn so much about myself, the personality he had developed while working in this field, and the things that he would tell me very nonchalantly. He would just tell me something and I would just be like, what? So all of these things I think I would have missed out on if I would not have applied for all of this. And this is something that I will carry forward. Being a designer, I will take this with me, all of this experience with me in my professional career. And he is one of the people who um, honestly was my biggest support in the US because he took it upon himself that he has to be that guardian figure for me, and he till date is helping me find opportunities. He's very closely working with me to find referrals for me and give me opportunities in the design field. So that was my first professional relationship that I formed, and that has helped me a lot to build out different industry connections. So I would definitely recommend, research assistantships, graduate assistantships, teaching assistantships, anything that you can find just to build these professional relationships because they work wonders for every student.
And Ritika, I'm just trying to underline a fact here. It's not just getting these positions. It's about being that you are such a lovely soul. Who would not want to be with you throughout your journey? Right?
Yeah.
For that, you need to genuinely care about that position, that person, and that relation cannot be one way. You have to devote your time and
Yeah,
energy
of
into
course. You
that,
have
building
to
up that
commit.
professional relation.
Yeah, you have to commit to the job completely. It's not that you're just getting the money. You have to work for it and you have to prove yourself constantly. But that I think is a motivational factor where you get to prove yourself every single day because you're learning whatever you are learning and you get to implement it immediately. That is, I think, one of the best experiences as a student that you can get because there's room for trial and error. Even if you make mistakes, there's room for, for the professor to be like, it's okay. I mean, you're just a student. This is where you can explore your design styles, your way of working, your professionalism. This is where you can really try literally anything. And that is, I would say, the freedom that a professor might give you, but yeah, it is a once in a lifetime opportunity because when you're working professionally where you're working 24/7, I don't think you'll get so much freedom to explore much. So I
Absolutely.
think,
Uh, Ritika, elaborate on your journey in US. How, what kind of differences you felt from studying in Symbiosis versus studying in TJU?
well, I mean, when you're studying in the same city that you're staying all your life, there's some sense of security that at the end of the day you're going home, right? And you know that you're going to your safe space that has been your safe space for most of your life. But coming to the US, packing up your life in three suitcases, in there's that initial excitement, of course, that you're going to explore a new country and you're going to meet new people, you're going to pursue a course that you really want to. But at the end of the day, there is a lot of homesickness that kicks in, and you have to acknowledge that because you're stepping out of your comfort zone. You've never, me personally, I have never stepped out of my comfort zone where I've shifted to another country and lived my life more independently. You tend to become more independent, of course, but you tend to grow up a lot. And I say that in a lot of different ways because you become more self-reliant because at the end of the day you're not going back home where there are people to catch you. You are coming back to your own house where you're staying, but it's only you who are there for yourself. And in that aspect you grow up a lot because you tend to take more stronger decisions. You become more strong. And of course, sharing a space with different people from different parts of the world, it's a cultural um, expansion. I wouldn't say cultural difference. I want to say cultural expansion because it broadens your scope of thought. You have, for me personally, I was living in a very closed up shell where I know how things are done because that's how it's done all my life in my house. But when you meet other people from other parts of the world, it's like, oh, I never thought of this. Oh, this is a better way to do this. Or maybe, oh, this is a different approach that I would not have thought of unless I would have met this person. So it broadens your thought process to an extent where you tend to look at things differently and it sort of shapes your personality in a very positive way because having come here in my early 20s my mindset was still very malleable. It was still very um, young and very, you know,
You are.
gullible, I would say.
Okay.
Honestly, gullible. But after coming here for 2 years, now I can very confidently say I know what I like and I know what I do not like. And that is because I have met people who have given me the opportunity to, live their life, live my life through. their eyes, and all of these things have sort of broadened my mindset, and I feel that my personality has been shaped because of all of these experiences that I've had along with my journey of being a student for 2 years. So
That's that's a unique way of looking at cultural differences. I clearly remember our conversation when you had the opportunity to take a Bangalore job, and you just took that opportunity to consider it as a stepping stone before you move abroad. That
yeah.
would how comfortable you would be to live independently, and my God, that was such a wise decision.
Yeah, I mean, that was supposed to be like a trial period for me to see if I can really live by myself and cook by myself and manage groceries by myself. But it's a very different thing living, still living in India and then living in the US or in any other country. The things, the operations are different. The way you would manage yourself financially, mentally, it is completely different, because in India, again, you have that sense of security that if anything goes wrong, you know what to do. Over here, you have to figure out what to do. And in figuring out what to do is where you become stronger, is what I've realized.
This will definitely be one of those codes we are going to highlight. Excellent. Now, now that we've kind of evolved or dived into the cultural conversation, can you discuss, or rather, can you let our audience know how different it is to study in US academically? How how different it was to study at St. Pius's versus TJU?
Okay. So the major difference for me was the amount of people that were in the class. So in Symbiosis, I had 50 odd people with me. And in TJU, it was more of a focused group of 20 people. So we had more of individual attention, and not everyone was taking the same course at the same time. So I had courses where it was just four of us with the professor. And I realized one major difference is that um, I think it might be a difference between undergrad and graduate programs, because uh, no professor is going to spoon feed you anything. It's how much you make out of the experience. So if you want to learn more, you're going to have to step up, speak up, and ask the professor questions. And that's when you can gain more information out of them. Not to say that they won't give you anything. Of course, there's like a ocean wide information that they will provide you with. But if there's anything specific that you want to know, because masters is where you think of a specialization, right? You grow as a designer. Talking about my field specifically, you grow as a designer, and if there's something specific you want to know, you will have to speak up. Unless you don't speak up, the professor is not going to come up to you and be like, hey, you know what, this is what I really meant by this. So I think I've learned how to uh, initiate conversations more with people and with professors specifically, because over here I found them more open towards conversations, and it was more friendly, I would say. Or I found more comfort in just going and talking to them about any topic in general, and they were open to receiving that, and just having a conversation for 45 minutes about a subject that the professor was not even teaching me, but it was still very insightful. So it was definitely more approachable compared to what my undergrad was. It was more approachable, and I feel it was more um, collaborative in nature, where I didn't feel like I was being given assignments and I was submitting them. It was more like, this is the problem space all of us are working on. Even if it's my own project, it was never like I am the only one working on this project, and whatever it is that I'm struggling with, it is my problem. It was everyone's problem, because that is the way how the course was structured. So that helped me a lot to learn about a more collaborative environment. and that is how you would ideally work in an office. You would work in a team of 4 or 5 or 6 or 10, whatever. So that sort of gave me an opportunity to explore how it is to work in a group without even having to do a group project per se. So, and of course, the other fact is that there's a lot of people from different parts of the world where you get to interact with a pool of innovative and genuinely creative people. Because when you come for masters, you know that you have come here with a strong motive, and everyone is working towards a very strong drive towards becoming a better designer. So no one's there for just fun, and no one's there just, I want this degree, it sounds cool. Everyone's really, really motivated. So working in that creative bunch makes you do better work. So that is a major difference that I realized between undergrad and masters, and more specifically undergrad in India and undergrad in the US. More collaboration and more creative people.
Awesome. Uh, Ruchika, there is a notion that design schools are the most expensive programs in the US, education programs,
Hmm.
right? How exactly can one avoid that trap of, or rather, can ease out the burden of expenses in design schools in the US?
One way, of course, is scholarships, but I don't think all of the universities are um, equally expensive. I think it depends on if it's a Masters of Science in User Experience or HCI. That's when the courses are a little more towards, I don't want to say affordable side, but like little more towards a friendlier budget. And when it's Masters of Arts, it includes a lot more different things, and that is why it is a little bit more expensive. It also depends on where the university is located. Now, if I'm talking about a university that's located in the West Coast, San Francisco Bay Area, the the university pricing is such that it is going to be it's going to be loaded with opportunities around, and that is why it is priced highly, because most of the job profiles that I have seen so far, they prefer to hire people who are in the similar location so that they don't have to pay for relocation. That's a simple thing. And that is one of the major reasons why they're priced so highly, because they're placed in a very prime location. So when you're thinking of joining a university that's in San Francisco Bay Area, it's going to be priced highly, but it is going to come with its own benefits. But if you do want a cheap, not a cheaper university, but a more friendlier budget, um, looking at the course title would help, one, and looking at the location. If it's a university town, it's most probably going to be a little friendlier. And there are tons of different scholarships available apart from graduate assistantships, or research assistantships or teaching assistantships. There's a lot of third party scholarships that are available from India as well. I know that there's one offered by Maharashtra government for people who are trying to pursue masters abroad, and it's even if it's a little amount, it helps a lot for some people, at least. But there are so many other opportunities. Most of the universities also offer scholarships once you come there. So there's opportunity to explore that once you're there in that university as well. It's how much you pursue a professor to give you that opportunity. It's how much you impress a professor enough to give you that, um, you know, way to acquire that scholarship. So I think
That's
just looking for, because not all of the universities mention that very openly on their
outright on their
websites.
brochures.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's something that you will have to research a little bit, go deeper into the pages, and find out. But every university is going to have something or the other available. You just need to look for it.
And you need to actively strive for it,
Yeah.
right? One thing which was underlined in your previous conversations also, that you really need to pursue the professor. So, is that what you will call being proactive and on the campus?
Definitely, because it's not like you're trying to impress the professor without any reason. It's through your skill set that you're trying to put yourself forward as a leader, and you're proving yourself worthy enough for an opportunity. It's not like you're I mean, I did say pursuing a professor. It's just that you have to flaunt your skills without being shy. And that is one of the major skills that most of us lack. Even I lack. Because even if I can do 10 things, I will not tell that proactively, saying that, oh, I can do this, I can do that. I will not highlight that enough. And you have to highlight that verbally. You have to put yourself forward in a pool of 10 people. You have to step up and be like, hey, you know what? I am going to do this because I want to. So that is something that I would urge everyone to do. Like, just put yourself forward because you have the skill set. It's not like you're faking it. You have it, so you're
You
just
you
showing
got
it.
an opportunity, you got an offer letter from a university. You certainly have that metal in you. It
Yeah,
just probably you need to sell your narrative wisely.
yeah, yeah. You need to show yourself as a leader for sure to get an opportunity like this.
Interesting. Uh, Ritika, now that we are since the point of you've been in US, AI has picked up really well. You know, so it's in last
Mm.
1.5 2 years. How and specifically with respect to the design aspect, there's a whole different application of AI in designing. As a designer, how do you see AI?
So initially, I was genuinely very scared of what all AI can do, and I there was an ongoing meme about how it's going to take up all of designers' jobs because AI can just do it with a simple prompt. But as I went in deeper into it, and for my thesis also, my thesis majorly revolves around AI integration in online education. So the reason behind why I've been interested so much in AI is because there's so many ways that we can leverage AI to make our lives easier so that people can focus on creativity and innovation. Let AI do the more repetitive tasks like synthesizing all of the data. That would take me 10 days, but will take AI just 1 hour to synthesize, and that's ChatGPT or Google Gemini, anything. So, all of these repetitive tasks AI can do more accurately than I can, and I can spend more time on creativity, on designing my product. I can spend more time on, you know, innovating something for real. That is something that I really want to do. But that's going to take me hours to reach towards if I have to synthesize all of the big chunks of data. So, in my experience, I have personally leveraged AI a lot to research research and for synthesizing all of the data that I've got from for various projects. It's not just for thesis or it's not just for academic projects, but professionally as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of differences in how people think about AI. I am on the more positive side where I believe that AI cannot or can still not take up our jobs because it hasn't developed a consciousness yet. And for it to develop a consciousness, it needs to understand humans completely. And we as humans, we don't understand humans entirely. So that is still going to take a lot of time until we reach there and where AI develops a consciousness. But as designers, we can employ AI at the right specific points in our job profiles where it will aid us to become better designers. And that is something that I actively tried to do during my thesis project, where I used or meticulously used AI to synthesize data, to process all of the big chunks of data that I had, but not use it for my design phase. Because, of course, I tried that also. Interestingly, I did try to um, put in an exact prompt that this is what I'm looking to design. Can you design screens for me? And there is a tool called Galileo AI that can create like proper UI for you. And I tried to do that, but none of which curated exactly what my vision was, because my vision was more empathetic towards the user, because I was the one who spoke to the users, because I was the one who actually knew what exactly I wanted, right? So even if AI can do all of these things, it cannot be as empathetic, as emotional as humans are. So if we leverage that, I can work on the design phase. But I have conducted 12 interviews, and I have to create 12 debriefs, and I have to synthesize all of those 12 debriefs into actionable insights. That is going to take me 10 hours, and that is not a task I'm going to particularly enjoy. That's where I use AI. So,
This this is such a practical approach towards AI rather than just being on the typical pessimistic side of you know
oh, it's
uh,
going to take up our jobs and it's going to
apps.
ruin my life. It's not like that. It's where you employ it, because the final word for, we're talking about today, and for all of the AI tools that exist today, the final word still exists with the human that is using that AI technology. Even for the prompt that you give for ChatGPT, for Galileo, for any of the AI tools, it's the human initiating and asking the AI to do a certain job, post which it will do all of the analysis and all of the things that it will do, great things that it will do. And it's producing all of the results that it is. But it is still with me if I want to use it or not. The final word is still with me. It's not that I am compelled to use whatever AI is giving me. So I strongly believe that AI is a very good tool to implement. It's just where exactly in your job profile are you employing AI is what matters most.
You can capitalize on AI primarily by letting it enable you
Yes.
and riding it in
Yes.
the best possible manner.
I mean, by all means, use it to make yourself a better designer, a better professional in whatever field you are. It's, no one's going to stop you from doing that. But the final word still stays with you. AI cannot take up that part. So, I
Interesting.
know.
Yeah, Ritika, I would really like you to give us more insights about your thesis. It sounds exciting. It really seems exciting. Could you please elaborate on that?
I can talk about my thesis for probably 10 days at a time, because it has been my baby for 1 year. But it is a topic that is very close to home, and it is about online education. And when COVID hit, even I was forced into attending online school for 2 years. And I have seen, my mom is an education provider, and I've seen the struggle that she has gone through as a professor to engage students in an online forum, because there's a lot of different issues. There's malpractices, but majorly there's a lot of distractions that every student sitting home alone is surrounded with. There's mobile phones, there's iPads, there's laptops, or there's your bed where you can just go and sleep. You can attend class and sleep at the same time. So, all of these issues is what I have experienced firsthand, and I'm not saying I've experienced it through my mom's struggles. I have been that student where I've just attended class and I've just slept off for the next 2 hours. And that's something that I always wanted to touch upon, and that's when I came across this technology called facial expression analysis that helps if you're on a Zoom meeting, like we are on a meeting right now, it will sort of detect your face and it will isolate facial features from the background, and it will then track different facial landmarks like your head position, if you're looking down, if you're looking towards the side, how open or close your eyelids are, how many times are your eyes fluttering from one point to the other, and it'll all translate to how attentive or engaged the student is. And this is an aspect I really wanted to bring in an online forum, because when I conducted a lot of interviews, I realized that all of the professors struggled with gauging student uh, understanding during an online classroom because the cameras are switched off for most of them. Or as a student, it's very easy for me to just sit like this on a classroom, and the professor will never know if they've really understood the concept that I'm trying to teach. So if the professor does not understand what the students are understanding and how they're interpreting the topic that they're teaching, it's going to sort of diminish the entire value or the entire experience of teaching and learning. So my focus was to bring that body language back in an online forum, because ever since COVID, a lot of universities have completely shifted towards online education, where they're offering online courses to broaden their student scope geographically. So it is here to stay, right? So I really wanted to solve for that. And given the facial expression analysis based on how engaged or attentive a student is, my platform, the platform that I designed, will also give AI driven active learning strategy recommendations that, hey, the engagement is going down, maybe you can implement this activity. And now, active learning strategies are something that have been used in physical classrooms for a lot of years, and it's an existing concept. And that is exactly what my platform will be trained on. So, my platform's AI will be trained on active learning strategies. These strategies are very malleable and very easy to implement, and they don't require any prior planning that, oh, if I have to implement this strategy, I'm going to have to do these 10 things. No, these are very easy to implement, and you can implement them immediately. The second I tell you, you can very easily implement this. So
Yes.
AI will be trained on that, and the professor can feed. It's called Sparkit, the platform. So just for reference, so the
Is it
professor
like
can
me?
feed Spark Ed with their material, whatever PPTs, PDFs, links that they have, and Sparkit will educate itself on the subject matter that you're providing, and it will suggest most relevant activities based on the subject matter that you've provided. So if the engagement is going down in a certain classroom, say it's 25%, that's when Sparkit will be like, hey, the engagement is going down. Maybe this is a strategy or this is an activity you can implement based on the subject matter that you've provided me. This is the most relevant thing that I think your students will enjoy. And it's up to the professor. It's not like I'm asking them to, no, you have to implement this. It's up to the education provider, so they can just gain insights from the facial expression analysis that, okay, the engagement is going down, here's a recommendation, or if I have my own preferences to bring the engagement back up, I can implement that. So it's an overall tool that empowers educators to plan, adapt, and pivot their teaching strategies in an online setting. So that is what my thesis
Such a
focused on.
great idea. You know, if implemented, it would solve so many problems.
Yeah, that's it.
That was the whole idea, I believe.
Yeah.
Awesome. So happy to hear about your thesis, the way you have evolved, matured. Ritika, can you please guide? So this question is divided into parts. Now that you are on the other side of the table, right? You have experienced everything. How would you guide in parents of high schoolers or parents of students who just completed the graduation or in the graduation, undergrad, and are thinking about studying abroad, say primarily US? And B, what would you advise for these reasons the students in order to build their portfolios? What should they do actively to hone skill sets that are required to perform successfully or be successful in states?
Yeah. Um, I think I can talk more specifically for the field of design,
Okay.
because portfolio is a major requirement for literally everything. So I would say finding unique opportunities before you step into masters, like volunteering for something, or the way I found a part-time opportunity with you. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of part-time opportunities that give you an insight into how a professional candidate is, because um, this I'm talking for students that are hoping to pursue a master's in design, in any field of design. Experience matters a lot because that shapes you as a designer rather than going through a course, 4 year long course, because you have all of the academic knowledge, you don't have practical implementation of that knowledge. And that is going to matter a lot when you go for your masters, because um, when you come to the US, the entire course is designed way too professionally, and if you don't have a professional experience, you're going to find it a little difficult to adapt to it, because it's not so um, outrightly academic. It's not just you completing assignments and you submitting assignments. It is going to be a little bit more professional. So having a little bit of professional experience, I would say, is most beneficial before you pursue a master's degree. And as for parents, I don't know what exactly I can say to help them, but what helped my parents to really know that I can survive by myself is the fact that I stayed in Bangalore for 3 4 months, and that was like a trial period for me and for them, to really know that okay, she can manage herself or she can handle herself on a day to day basis, even if we are not there. So sh- like that gradual shift is something that is very necessary in my opinion, because if you shift drastically from being very sheltered to being completely independent, it can cause a lot of trouble. So letting, even if you don't have an opportunity to move to a different city, letting the aspiring students be a little bit more independent before they go to the US is a must, because that's when you, I mean, that's where I feel parents also learn to be without their kid, and the kid also learns to be a little bit more um, independent. And that's like a trial period. If you fail, it's fine. But when you come over here, there's no opportunity to fail. You have to face the
Opportunity
consequences.
cost is significantly higher.
Hmm?
That opportunity cost is significantly higher.
Yeah. So that gradual shift, and I would say if you are perplexed about, I've had a lot of LinkedIn, a lot of people approaching me via LinkedIn, where they have been like, we've got into this university and this university, which one do you think is the best one? And that is not them asking that question, that is mostly the parents asking that question, that which university do you think is better for my kid? And I've had phone calls also where the parent is asking most of the questions, that where do you think is a better career opportunity for my child, and everything. I would say most of the curriculum is very similar in all of the universities, or whatever that you will gain from a university is completely dependent on the student. It's not dependent on the curriculum as much as it is dependent on you, where you go up to the professor and be like, no, hey, I want this information from you, I want to squeeze this out of you, and this how proactive you are. So the curriculum really does not matter. Maybe the location matters to a bit that you can always relocate from any part of the world to any part of the world. So I'm on the East Coast right now. I'm still applying for job opportunities on the West Coast, and it does not make me a lesser candidate for those opportunities. It's the fact that my university gave me a lot of professional experience where they had a little bit of affiliation with the industry. They got industry professionals in, and they uh, helped us connect with a lot of industry professionals. That has what has helped me. And that is something that you need to look at more than the finances and the curriculum. How many industry connections can the you can simply just go on LinkedIn and look at the university and look at the people from that university and where they're working. And that is an advice I got from you actually, where you asked me to connect with alumni and whatnot. And that's where I realized that okay, people from this university are working at Comcast, are working at QVC and all of these big companies. Maybe not Google, but there are universities where alumni are working at Google. But I mean, it's a gamble. It's
Yeah,
how
true.
much you
It's a
want to.
choice rather
It's a
than a
choice.
gamble. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
choice.
gamble.
Calculated risk.
Yeah, it's a very calculative choice. But at the end of the day, it's how much the student makes out of the curriculum, and it's not dependent on any other factors. So don't make your choices based on, um, or don't overthink it basically. Just go for whichever one you feel is best for you, because you can gain an opportunity anywhere. It's it's extremely dependent on you, very focused on you. So it's up to you how much you make of it.
It's, I believe, also about how much you resonate with the university culture. Specifically, the more you attend their open sessions, the more you talk to the academic advisors,
Yeah,
the university professors beforehand, that will really guide you into the fact that is this the right fit for you or not.
yeah. I think another factor I would say is look at the class strength, because I mean, if you are okay with
Right.
120 people studying the same course as you, there are fewer opportunities where you can personally interact with the professors. And the professors are mainly what you come there for. Because if you really wanted to learn with 120 other people, you can do it online. It's about the professionals that you're going to meet over there. So that was a deciding factor for me. I did not want to go in a class beyond 20 people. And that's what I had decided for sure. So, more famous universities will have more people. A few lesser famous universities will have lesser students, but it will be extremely focused. It is not that, I mean, they offer a, you know, I don't know how to word it, but a
Yes,
less
yes.
professional
Get it.
course.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
And
The
it's
curriculum
not
is there.
like it's not supposed to be directly proportional. Just because you end up having a lesser batch size does not mean the university is not that
Yeah,
great. For that matter, TJ is one of the best design schools, right? In spite of that, you end up having the luxury of uh, having smaller, tinier batch sizes. Where I'm just trying to imagine how tight you would be as a community. 20
yeah,
people for 2 years, you're so tight. For
yeah.
the rest of your life, you guys are going to be. Uh,
These are relationships that you can never build again. These are people
yes.
you will never meet just by fluke, where you just. These
I
are very different types of relationships which I will cherish for a lifetime. And another thing, TJU is actually not famous for design, it is famous for medicine.
yes,
And
yes.
another thing that I was very focused on is that I wanted to get into either education, edtech, or I wanted to get into healthcare. And since I was getting a scholarship with TJU, I thought that maybe this will help me build connections in the healthcare industry. It doesn't have to be directly related to my professional field, it has to be with your uh, industry that you want to work with. So this, I mean, TJU will definitely help me gain some recognition in the healthcare community. So that is another aspect if you want to consider. But
Yeah, the clarity, having that clarity beforehand, the way before you actually start applying to university, is that which specific segment I would like to spend my rest of the life in. That really is important, or that narrows down your choice of which school you should
yeah,
apply to, or rather invest in.
yeah.
Awesome. Ritika, what are your future plans?
My future plans are, I'll be extremely honest, and this is what even my father says, that every US person who comes to the US initially says this. But I do want to come back to India, and I want to have my own design studio. And I think I've told you this multiple times. When I was pursuing my undergrad as well, I very strongly want to own my own design studio, but I want to have enough experience that I can flaunt for my design studio. So I want to gain a lot of experience working with a lot of different professionals, and that is what my focus is right now. And that's what
I
I'm
would
doing.
just
So
I would just like to second on that. I know for a fact I've seen you design, I've seen you evolve. I have worked with you, uh, and way beyond that, I've seen your work as well. I know for a fact you would be such an exceptional designer. You are such an exceptional designer,
thank you.
specifically in the edtech segment, as far as I've seen, and for obvious reasons. Your projects have been excellent. Ritika, from Anand, as it has always been, our wishes are always with you. We are
Thank
very
you. That
happy.
means a lot to me always.
Pleasure is ours. I'm out of words here, but we are extremely happy and proud to see you mature into this awesome candidate and professional. We
Thank you.
really wish you well. Looking forward to see you soon, as early as possible, for obvious reasons. And being a bit selfish here, but yes,
Hopefully
wish you
soon.
all the best.
Yes,
Thank you so
definitely.
much for your time.
Hopefully. Thank you so much for having me. This was a wonderful conversation. I'm glad to have an opportunity to express myself. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, dear. Thank you. All the best. Take care.